Okay, so we should be live on YouTube. Okay, I'm on. So we're going to be live here. I'm going to move a little bit myself on the left. And this is going to be this guy today. We're going to continue and finish actually the MCP client, the Streamable Transport. So that is going to be our goal, is to finish these kind of things. There's a whole big series that I have right now in the live, so I'm going to keep those such as everybody can see them. Okay, so that is the thing. We did quite a bit of things. So if you go to my YouTube channel, if you go there, YouTube, Jeremy Sean, go there, you should see live, and then you should see all, sorry, I have the thing here over there, and you should see all of these guys here. So there's a part 1, part 2, part 3, and then this one is the finale. And the final of, not the MCP client, the final of the Streamable Transport. So that is what we are going to look right now. I'm going to send that a little bit to Discord as well. I mean, to Twitter, in case people want to follow as well. Like this one, and then Twitter. Russ. Programming. Okay, just a little tweet here. Okay, so let's see how many we are right now. Live stream 2. Thanks. So what we're going to do today, we are going to continue this one, which is that guy over there, which is the MCP client, Streamable Transport. So what I have is I have that crate, which is agentic, which is the one that we're building. I'm the author of this one. And then the agentic crate has MCP and eventually A2A. And the goal here is to have a very ergonomic API to be able to do an agentic kind of API. Now, we did quite a bit of work. What we did already is we did, so feel free to send comments, and as well for the people that want to join the meeting over MS Team for real-time audio is also possible. There, I'm going to put it in the comment. MS Team, real-time video, audio. Okay, so that will allow you to do the thing. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to finish this Streamable Transport. And so we did quite a bit yesterday and today. And right now we're going to finish the code, making sure that we have the right mutex and all these kind of things. So it's going to be pretty cool. So we go back there. So we have this code base, which allows us to do the MCP. MCP is the simplest way to look at it is an API for tools that you can call and that AI can also discover and then call. It's not the AI calling. It's the AI is going to give us a JSON and then we make the call and then we give it back to JSON. An LLM never calls anything. It just gives to the system what it wants you to call. And then we are the one calling it. So that is the way it works. Yeah. So let's do that. And so right now here, the thing that we have is this kind of architecture. So the MCP has whole messages and all these kind of things. There's a whole spec. The spec is very well done. It's in TypeScript, which is a very good language when you have this kind of scripting JSON. If you have a JSON structure, it's perfect. And it's using JSON RPC. Yeah, so that is what MCP uses. And so in fact, the JSON RPC I have it there. I have a slide for that. It's better than a slide, it's a sketch. And so that's JSON RPC. And so every line, every time you communicate with a MCP server, it's a JSON RPC. And JSON RPC is just a JSON. You have a marker like this, JSON RPC 2.0. You have to do it. ID, that is the ID of the request, which get echo back. And then the method names and the params, name a dictionary. You can pass an array, but dictionary is better. Hey, Habibim. And so the thing is, that is what MCP and A2A is based on. And it's actually, if you look at my Rust web app architecture video, I have a big one here of 3 hours. We use JSON RPC as well. So we've been using our JSON RPC for a long time. Hey, Pierre, thank you guys to chat here. That's good. I see that I'm live. So what we're going to do today is a streamable transport. So this crate is starting to work pretty well. So again, the crate is that one, the agentic crate. I'm the author, very at the beginning. So when you put 0.0.3, obviously people are not going to play with it. They know it's experimental. So that is a good way when you grow, you mature your crate, you can publish it and then grow it like this is a good way. And then it will become a 1.0, 0.1, probably with client only, and 0.2 will be when we have the server. So the goal here of this one, of the agentic crate, is to have the type and everything needed, such as you can build a client application that will talk to MCP tools, or you can build an MCP server as well with this crate. And the cool thing is, once you have the type done, once you have the type done, the types done, all of these guys, which has been done here. So I spent a lot of time to make it ergonomic, which follows this spec, the spec of the MCP. Then everything client or server is relatively the same. So that is where it's getting very cool. So what we did here, here's how it works. I like to have the examples like that. I do client prefix because I will have client, 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 and I will have server, server, server. C01, C02, C03. The thing that I like in my best practices when I do example is to name them like that, such as you can kind of see from simple to more complex to more advanced. It's not bulletproof because sometimes, as it goes down, it's, there's not one more complex than the other, but it's a good one to always see. Otherwise, it doesn't order nicely. And so the C01 here is super simple. It's going to call this MCP server, and that is the reference implementation of the MCP server. So when you implement an MCP client, you always want to use these guys. The Anthropic guys rocks. They did an amazing job. So if you go to that spec here, so they have a cool spec documentation. They put all the spec in one TypeScript, which is heaven. Files such as it's perfect because you can have documentation and everything. So it's heaven. And then they have the things where when you go, you will see that there's a link here and you have it over there. So it goes directly to the server. And that is the everything server. So they have a set of servers over there. And then they have an everything server. And so the everything server is basically what everybody's using to test MCPs, because that supports pretty well MCP. And we find something a little bit weird where they don't return always content type, but we'll talk about that later. So now, we took this one, you install it with NPM. So my advice is don't get, usually I have NPM anyway, install. But use NPM, don't go and try to use bun.js because with command line, sometimes it doesn't work with that. I love bun.js for other things, but on this one, I would recommend to go with NPM. I lost kind of a day or two with the stdio protocol. So now the cool thing and I'm repeating from this morning here, but I want to make sure that everybody gets that, is with JSON RPC, compared to any other protocol, even gRPC, which is very based on, it's protobuf, but it's dependent on HTTP2. JSON RPC is just that. It's just that in the input and that in the output. So it's protocol independent. It's transport independent. And in fact, we use it for web app, for all our web APIs, for the UI or for even public, it's always JSON RPC. And I even use it when I do a Tori app. I have the Tori handlers, but in fact, it goes and route after to a JSON RPC. So in a way, the IPC, the inter-process communication, the transport can be any protocol. It doesn't matter. And then the body is JSON RPC. And JSON is very pervasive because everybody supports it. It's only text and stuff. So it doesn't have the compile time of protobuf and so on. And it's extremely simple, works over REST, obviously, because in this case, it's over REST. You always do get. Post, usually. You can also get if you want to get some message back. Or you use it in std.io. So that is what is happening with MCP. MCP has two modes. That when you have a server, this famous server, which is very cool, which is the server everything. Okay, so this is an MCP server. You have an echo, so far so good. You have an add. You have a long running operation, which is pretty cool. Sample LLM, which is going to the prompt to send demonstrate LLM sampling. Okay, that's my mistake this morning. So that is a sample like sampling LLM. So that's cool. So that is basically the tools, the server, MCP server that say, hey, to do my job, I need you, the system, to send this prompt to the AI and then give me back the answer. So that is pretty cool. And then you have all these kind of things. So right now, this can be run if you have Cloud Desktop, for example, you run it like this, and that by default, we run in std.io, meaning that every time you send a line, it's going to be it has to be a JSON RPC line, and then it will send it there, and then it will respond in a JSON RCP on the std out. So it's very simple, and that is what we have implemented. And it's great. So create the new client, new transport, std.io, you do the new, that is a command line. Client connect with the transport config, and that we can actually call it config to make sure that it's config. And this is connect the way that it designs the API and making sure that the API can get the into client transport. And if people want to, that I define that, this is a sealed crate. So the user of the crate do not implement client transport. The crate provides the client transfer, the transport. But you can pass a config, and config, they know how to turn themselves into a client transport. So that is what is happening over there. And then the connect here does all the work, and it sends the first event, which is the initialize command. So that is the way it works. Yeah. JSON RPC has compression. No, not out of the box. So good question. Hello, JSON RPC has compression. Well, it has, if you are using HTTP, can have compression. I don't think that JSON RPC in the specs per se say they have compression. I think they are saying, well, it's up to the transport to define. So when you're on over HTTP, you can say the body is JZip or whatever it is, with a header or whatever. So I think they led that to the transport, which I think is a good choice. But that is a good point, because if it's big, usually it's not that big, but if it's big, because it's text, you can actually reduce quite a bit the payload. For small, it doesn't really matter that much. Now, this is also a really good question, because I compared a while back JSON RPC with gRPC, and there's some good comparison. Actually, I didn't compare. I look at comparison, and on small, very small things, gRPC, protobuf, it's smaller. But as you go up, if you gzip, obviously, your JSON RPC, then it's kind of a wash. Yeah? gRPC is still smaller, but not that much. And then if your payload is a lot of text, I think, the zip will probably go higher, be more efficient. But init param, so that is a way here that you call. So that is send the init param. The beautiful things about this design, in fact, the design of MCP with the concept of transport is, as you can see here, I'm sending an event. I don't even know which transport I have. Yes, so I'm sending that, I'm sending the event, and then the transport here, whatever I have, and the transport is an enum, and I can support these two guys. Okay? And then later I might have a custom transport. So that is the way it works. What we have implemented in the previous videos, and you can look at the videos over there. If you go to Gemishon here, I have all of these videos here. It's kind of a big journey. So this one was kind of the introduction, and we were just playing with it. And those 4 guys, so this one is right now, and then those 3 guys is we added the streamable transport, which is what I'm calling the HTTP transport. Okay. So right now, what we're using in this simple guy is the command line. So you start a command line and you call it as a command line. Then on this one, what we're doing is we are calling it, connecting, and then we call directly the tools like that. That is the 3 things that we're doing. Okay? So we call, here we're calling the echo tools, and here we're calling the params, the add tool. So that is what we do. So if we do a cargo watch execute, so I have a share function that do a cargo watch execute with quiet and everything I like. And now I can do a C0 client, C02 call tool. And that will work, okay, because it will send that. I have 2 guys here. I'm calling the echo, and I'm calling this guy. And so I see the result, and then I'm just print the result like that. And so I have the result here, the thing that he gave me back, yeah, the MCP, the everything server. And now the cool thing is, if I run the C01 simple, it has these things where now I call the server, so that is a transport config, and then I'm going to call send request to do a list tool params. And then the cool thing, the way that I wired the types, is you build your params, so that follows the spec of MCP, and then when you follow the params, it will return the MCP response and list tools result. So everything is typed. So it's pretty cool because here I get an MCP response with that guy. But if I go there, here, I'm going to get an MCP response with a call tool result. Okay, so this is pretty cool because then everything is wired. Okay. So the ergonomic of the API kind of things. And that, by the way, I use a lot AI for coding and stuff, and that is something that AI didn't, I had to do it manually. And then when I did it, then I ask it to follow the pattern for all of the other types. So I use AI to do a first shot at everything. It was impressive, compiled, was very good, very idiomatic, but not very ergonomic. And so I kind of trashed that, and then I recreated myself, very carefully how I wanted the APIs, and then I asked AI to replicate that to other types. And it works beautifully. So what we did yesterday and today is we added the HTTP transport. So we saw this guy. I'm going to actually here, just to make sure that it's super clear. That is not the transport. it's a transport config. I just want to do that to make sure that is clear. And that is not transport, is a transport config, which happened this time to be an HTTP transport config. So now I'm going to press save. I'm going to actually come here, git c, minor dot is, so git commit add, and then this is dot, and I'm going to say just, yeah, examples, code clean. Okay, doesn't really matter. So the point is that now I can also the same, I mean, it doesn't have to be the same server, but often if you do not often, if you do an MCP server, you have the choice of supporting stdio as a command line. So for example, stdio is like that, where you do what we are doing. I mean, that here they're saying, hey, in Cloud Desktop, you configure like that. And by default, it will call the commands, and that will be the args, the arguments. And this is exactly kind of mimic this way because that is basic. It's what we have there. This is a config. This is npx, and that is the arg, and then stuff. In fact, if you look at the code here, that is as ergonomic as the TypeScript one. Now, the cool thing about that, and if you have any question, feel free to ask. You can also join the MS team if you want to have real-time audio and stuff, and if you have voice questions or whatever, the two are the same, except that the MS team is real-time. The YouTube is always delayed of a few seconds. And so the cool thing is what we did is the transport, the HTTP transport. That is what we did this morning, San Francisco time. And what we did is this guy. So the way it works is when you do a client connect, so here I create my transport. If you look, we're going to look at the HTTP. If you look at the client HTTP transport, it just has the URL for now, might have more later. And then you do a client connect, okay? If you look at the API of this one, that's the way I design it. It's going to take the transport source into client transports, and that is an interface, which is CL, which is going to allow me to make it into a transport, okay? And this one will be something like that. So I call the into client transport, and that will give me a transport. And then I start the transport, because the way that I design it, and I think most is designed, and that is its implementation. Yes, as long as you follow the spec, everybody's happy. Yeah. The goal here is when you start listening the various channels. And so the way that I've been doing it is I've been using the channel of Flume. So it could use Tokyo if you want. So I use this one. And I like a lot this one because it's efficient, but I think they're all efficient enough. But they are super convenient to use because the TX and the RX, you can call it with await. They have a sync function or async function, and they take care of the rest. And this is game changer for so many reasons, because otherwise, if you have an async and you try to call it in a sync function, it's a nightmare, and vice versa. So that takes care of that. So usually I like to have this. I do that. But you can use another channel like Tokyo or whatever you want. Whatever works with you. But the point here is I have this business here, which is the T-Rex and the transport T-Rex. And those guys, they have the SAN and the RX that goes well. So this function here makes sure that it creates all of the channels, one for the transport, one for the client and everything. And then I can pass, when I start my transport, I pass the transport T-Rex, which will have the right pairs of what the transport needs. And then the client will decompose, destructure the client T-Rex, and then I can do my own logic. So I have a self run out and run air, and here I'm running the inputs is what I give into the other stuff. So that is the way it works. Yeah, this one I keep it there, such as these guys have it. Yeah. So that is the way it works, and that allows me to listen to STD out and STD in and all these kind of things. And in fact, for web, I'm using the same kind of metaphor because it works well. So the connect here, connect doesn't know, those things are transport independent. And so now for a transport, STD.io, I'm going to get, when I do the start, okay, let me up. When I do the start, I get the T-Rex of my transport, which has the right input, receiver and senders. So I have the receiver for in, which is the input, which is the request we want to send, and the out, which is STD out, and the air, which is in the case of STD.io, is STD air. Don't want to go too deep, but you can listen to that. This is a way that some server use in STD.io to have some debug print. Okay? But usually those are the two. And then here's the important things. I start the command line, okay? And then this is where the magic happens. So this one is a standard error, but that is the thing where I listen the out, which is the thing coming back from the STD out, which I need to send back to the client and so on. And that is the STD in. So when we send a request, it goes there. It goes through this one. And I spawn the thing, and those will live longer than the end of this function. So that will obviously end before those guys end. Okay? And then on the HTTP transport one, I have the same pattern, so I get this. So the nice things about these guys, command U to show the type. It's my com RX, so it's a little wrapper. I have a little wrapper on top of the things. And I like to have wrapper because then I can have, this one, it's a little bit silly function, but I can have my own function. So in Flume, they have async, but for me, the async is a default, so I reverse it a little bit. It doesn't matter. Yeah, you use it. But typically, I like to have this because then when I send, for example, if I have the sender, I can take EPL into like that and have the things that I want to have for my app. So sometime, and I might change that. Yeah, I might say, where are my senders for my app? I don't want string. I want my own. At some point, I might have that. I want to have my own pub, enum, and com in. Yeah. In event. I don't know if what should become event. And then I have this one will be a string, and that will be string. I don't know if it's good to have the same name like that. And that could be something else if I wanted. And that I will be into that, and I will import. I will implement from string for this guy. And then suddenly I don't need to change everybody that pass a string because I have the from of that. And then I can have another type if I want. So that is what I like in my pattern, yes, because when you wrap things like that, I start with my string. I can span static or whatever I want. And then later I can say, hey, for my communication TX, I need not only string, I need something else. So I do the import and then I do the link. So hopefully that makes sense. But this way, and I don't do that all the time, but sometimes I do that. I wrap other people's library and I narrow it down to what I need for my app. Okay. So that is one of the patterns I do. So right now here, what we are doing is pretty cool because we have our applications that works pretty well. So we have the client tool. So we saw that that works very beautifully. And what we've done this morning, we finished the HTTP transport. So the way that the HTTP transport works now, we don't do this guy. We're going to do a C03 HTTP. Now that should be Kaboom. That is not Kaboom because I have it running here. So I'm going to stop it. Okay, I didn't close it this morning. So if I run it and I press save, same thing, that is going to be Kaboom now because I don't have the server. And this was a server, so it was expecting a server. By the way, do not forget to add MCP because I didn't find it in the doc and I got lucky yesterday when I guessed it. So now what you do is you go back to the spec over there. And again, they did a super good job with the server everything. So that is a reference implementation in a way of the server. I mean the test implementation. And they are going to give us somewhere. So HTTP SSE is deprecated, but they have the streamable HTTP transport, which is SSE like with post. So anyway, so this is still SSE, but there's a variant on that. So we're not going to support SSE, we're just going to support this. The crate might have to support SSE as well. So I'm not 100% sure that I'm not going to support SSE ever. But, and that will be, I don't know how. My question in my head is, can the transport detect if it's a SSC protocol or a streamable HTTP protocol, which is also SSE mixed up, so it's not clear. So now I'm going to take that and I'm going to start my server. So that start the server, open the thing, start thing, and I need to go relatively quickly because this time is out otherwise. And that now, boom, sends a request and get all of that. And this is beautiful. So that is what we've done. And so if we look at how that worked, is we are over there, which is stuff. So if we go to the transport implementation, this is where the magic happened. And so the SSE, I mean the transport, HTTP transport is stateful, yeah, because since it's an event-based protocol, it has to be stateful. You have to know, I mean, what I'm saying here is not actually completely true. Since it's event-based and you have notification for different clients, it had to be stateful because it has to know to which client the notification mapped to. Yeah. So this is where these kind of things now, they are stateful with session. So it's interesting. And so when we're going to do the server later, that is going to add another dimension of complexity, but it's a needed one. So the way here that it works is like this. I have the start, and I get my T-Rex business, you know, the in and the out. The air is ignored right now because I don't think there is an air channel. So this one will get dropped, that's fine. So I have the in and the out, and then I start my Tokyo thing here, which will be for both. Yeah, and so the Tokyo will move on the in, get all of the in request, and then it will get the header application because we're on HTTP. Then we are building our request. We're using request here, the crate, the URL that we got on the config. And so in JSON RPC, the URL is always the same. Yeah, the endpoint is only one endpoint. And then you are doing a header here, content type header, which is this guy. And I could have simplified it here. I don't need to be so fancy. And the reason why is because in header they have impl too. Yeah, so this is generic types. So that's why I can pass things. So I like it's a nice API, and I like this kind of ergonomic. There's an argument to say, well, when you do generics, then it will duplicate this function body for all the various type we have, which is true. So it's increase the binary size. But then in this case, for example, it doesn't really matter because there's just one function, or sometimes it's very short. And that is where the whole logic goes. So I don't know if it did that for this reason. No, it might be another reason, but that wouldn't cost too expensive. But from the API, it's much nicer. Now, in the spec here, now we need to say we support text event stream and application JSON back. And then we are doing a text clone here, which I do not like. And I don't remember why. I think it was for a debug that I did that. Yeah, it was for a debug at some point. And that is where the magic happened. When we are going to send the request, there's an MCP session that is going to be in the header. And so we need to capture the MCP session. And if we have it, we need to set it for the next request, such as the server can know which session it is. So what we've done this morning is we have this session ID holder, which is an arc mutext, and that's fine. The code tension will be pretty low on this one anyway. This is Tokyo mutext because it might be used across a weight, and that is an option. So we don't know. Yeah, we might have. I mean, at the beginning we're not, and then we might. And so in this case, we're saying, hey, if we have the session holder and we get the lock, the guard, and then we are getting it from the thing. And if we have one, we are going to set the request in the request. Now, the request is a consuming pattern. So we need to make sure to reassign it to request. Otherwise, we're going to have a bug. We're going to think it's set, but it's not going to be set. Yeah. Again, if you have any question, feel free to ask question. You can also join over there on the MS team for the live. The meeting is running. And that is the thing. So here what we're doing is to say, hey, if we have a session, then we are going to set it. Okay, so that is the thing. I got a beep somewhere. I don't know who beep, but okay. So the thing here is that now we get the request with this session. Now, what we're doing later, and then I put some to-dos. So, okay, this one is interesting. Here, I'm dropping this variable here. This guy, I'm dropping it. Because if I were not dropping it, once I make the request, I may want to get the session from the header of the response. So that raises response. So I get the session and I say, hey, if there is one, I don't really care if there is an error or whatever. And so if there is a session, I want to get the lock again and change the value and put it there. So if I were not going to drop it there, that will have still be active in a way, and that will have done a deadlock. So that is what we had this morning, and then we fix it. So hopefully that makes sense. So the thing here is that now, every time we have a request, we are going to do that on the return, which is say, well, this is a little bit a waste here because we don't have to ask this lock, because if we already have the let me think. Yeah. So the thing I'm trying to do here is to avoid. So here's the thing that is happening is we are doing that, and we have to do that. Say, hey, if we have a session, if we capture a session, we need to set it back. Because in the start, when we start here, we don't know if that is running or not. Yeah, we have no clue we have no clue which requests we are running because those are the input running. In fact, if you see that, this is just string. So the whole typing, which is taking a JSON, putting it in a string and everything, it's another layer that does it. It's not this one. It's inside the client and it does it regardless of the transport. So again, the thing I was explaining is, in the previous videos is when you have an architecture, you want the parts of your system, so here the transport, to be smart at one thing, talking the transport way, but dumb at everything. So this guy is not in the business of serializing, deserializing JSON and all these kind of things. Yeah, just take a string, send a string, get a string, and send back the string, and then someone else is doing the work. So that is the design. So the point here is, I don't know if that is an initialize, because what's happening is when we initialize, that is where we get the session. I mean, we get the session ever after that, but we want to keep the session such as every new request will be there. But in fact, we have our session ID holder. And what we are going to say, well, when I'm going to send that back, you see, when I have that, it means that I set it. I set the session ID. Yeah, because I got it there. So I have one. So if I have one, I don't need to lock it there. I don't need to get it back. So if I have one, I don't need to reset the same one. In fact, what I want is to say, if I have one, I'm going to set it. And then if in my response, I have one that doesn't match it, I want to complain. That is a very robust way of building the client. Yeah, because now if there's a bug in the server and the server starts giving you other session IDs, which is very bad, you want to do this kind of things here, logic. And that will avoid most of the time to do this second one here, resetting, because here we reset all the time. And we take the response header and then we set it again. So that is very cheap. But that guy is a little bit more expensive. In this frame of reference is nothing. Yeah, so we need to make sure to not over optimize. So here we don't need to do a lock free or whatever. That would be silly because the frame of reference here, we are in the, when you send to AI or whatever, to the server, it's not you don't need to save this nanosecond or whatever. So, but it would be nice here to not do that twice. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to say, well, okay, when I'm here, I'm going to get the session ID and I'm going to set the session ID. So that I'm going to go there and I'm going to set it there and then I'm going to drop it. Now, so now, okay, I'm going to go with this. So now if I do something like that, I'm going to say rec. And I'm going to say has session ID. Okay, so I'm going to say a tuple now. I'm going to say let rec. That's it. I should do that for readability for me. And so in this case, we say, yes, he had session ID. True. And then in this case, we say, no, we do not have session ID. False. Make sense? So here we say, hey, yeah, we had the session ID in the holder. Yeah? And then in this case, we say we do not have the session ID. Okay, and so that is the initialize. We still drop the thing. If we don't drop it, lower stuff. If I press save here, so this is why I love my cargo watch, it's going to run again, and I'm going to see that. If I see these guys, I know that it works pretty nicely because Client Connect will send one request initialize, and then this one, send request list to params, is going to do the other one. And it wouldn't work if I didn't set the session ID. This one will work, the connect, the first initialize, but then this one wouldn't work. In fact, if I really want to make sure, I will do something like that. Comment this guy, press save, and here we should have a kaboom. Boom. Yeah? We have a kaboom and this and that and say, hey, server not initialized. Yeah, so far so good. So we do that. Now, the way that the thing is working, because we do a cargo watch, doesn't maintain the state. And so the poor server over there, but that's fine. We don't feel too bad for it. It's going to create a new, every time we run new, is going to create a new initialize, which is fine. Every time we press save. So that is pretty cool. And now we know that if we had the session ID or not. So if we has one, we don't need to go and fish for it, correct? So we're going to say if let session ID, and so that is a thing. I don't know if we can do that. If that is the chaining if kind of stuff. So what I would like to do is that, yeah, if we don't have a session ID, then we do that. But I don't think that will complain. I don't think they are working on this business here. Yeah, let expression. So that would be nice, yeah, because I could do the tuple, but I don't want the tuple business because I don't want to even do that. Well, this one is an expensive one, it's not that one. So, well, actually, I'm going to, sorry, I'm thinking about the stuff here. Yeah, we're going to do it like this. This one is not an expensive one, so we're going to do that. And so we're going to do let, and we're going to say raise session ID to not be confused. And that will return an option of str, which is fine. That's what we want. Okay. So this one is cheap. Okay. This is cheap. It's just a hash map and it doesn't even do a new allocation. So this one is virtually free. Now we go to that guy, and then that guy, we're going to say, hey, we want that, and we want the sum here because we want to set the string there. So that is where it's fine. We're going to do the tuple business where if let, yeah, if let true, and then sum false. We don't have a session ID. And we are going to say sum. It's a little bit weird here, but it's going to make sense later. And so now we're going to do that. And now we're using the tuple guy. And honestly, you've got to love Rust. The way I wrote it here was not the most convenient way, but this is stuff, and then here we have session ID. So like this, and this is a beautiful thing about Rust, yeah? Like this, we didn't have to do this like big thing. We are just saying, press save, it compiles. We're just saying, we are taking the tuples here, which is a has session ID over there, which is a Boolean. We're taking this one, which is an option. And we're saying, if this one is false, and this one is something, then we're all good to go, and we need to set it, okay? So that is what we have. And if we press save on that, and we go back over there, it should, boom, run it. That again shows that we're setting the guard, yeah? And if I really wanted to break things up, we'll do that. So this means nothing gets up, nothing gets set, and then it should be kaboom. Okay, that's cool. Sometimes I do that when I code. When I code, I'm too happy of myself, too proud of myself. I break myself a little bit to make sure that this guy taken account, because sometimes it's something else. Now, there's another thing that I want to add on this one. The thing that I want to add is to say, well, that's nice, but what if there's a bug in the server and the server is sending us a session ID that doesn't match this guy? Yeah. What happened there? And in our case, if that happened, we will ignore it because that would be true. And so that wouldn't go, and then we'll ignore it. And that wouldn't be nice. Okay? So probably do the initial result. No, I have my strategy was to check the initial result, but I think I'm happy with this one. Now what we want is check if session ID, if res session ID, check match holder. Okay, there is one in the holder, obviously. So we're going to go back here, and what I will do is I will do a git c. This is a minor thing in a way. I will do HTTP transport, and I will say add. Typically, I will probably have that thanks add, but no, this will be the same thing. Optimize and validate session holder. Okay, and that kind of gives us stuff. So that will be kind of this commit that we're going to work on. So now I'm going to go back down, and what I want is to compare there. But here's a trick. What we could say to say, hey, rather to return this guy, okay, this has session ID, we should return the string. Yeah, so this guy. But here the string is we get the reference. And when we are going to drop that, this is going to go away. So if we were going to say, okay, we're going to return, we're going to return the string, that wouldn't work. So the thing we could say is to say, hey, I'm going to return the sum. So I set the header, and then I will return, let's say, we're going to do something. Sum of session ID. It duplicates the two. We wouldn't need the two, but I'm going to do that. So if I press save here, and okay, I'm going to do that. It's ugly stuff. So that is fine. And we say, oh, it doesn't complain. That's pretty cool. Okay, so now on this guy, I have an option of string. And so I think I'm happy. And so I'm going to go there, and I'm going to say, well, okay, if we have false, so what we're going to do here, else, is going to be ugly, but anyway, it's not going to work. So we say if else, else, well, I'm going to do ugly here. If has a session ID, or if let's sum this one, okay? So we're going to do this, to say, hey, if we had this, we're going to do something there. Press save, and then should be okay. Now, oh yeah, that should be kaboom, yeah? Because that is say, hey, you drop the guard over there, so you don't have access to the reference of the ref, yeah? So now I could clone the string. That's possible. But cloning the string, I'm not really sure I want to do that. So I could clone the string. So if I do, and I can check the stuff here, I can do dot clone dot to string, for example, to, and now that will work, yeah, because I have the string. So I have the silly stuff here, but that will work. Now, I don't really want to clone the string. It's not a big deal. It's not long, but it's like weird because now on every single request, I'm going to clone this beast, which is so-so. So another way to look at it, which this one is also two, is either I keep this guy, the guard longer. Yeah, so here I'm dropping the guard and then I'm asking again the guard. So what about we do this? We're going to keep that there. Okay, so we do a session ID like that. And again, we don't need both, but that compiles. That will probably hold now because we have we're doing again the lock and it doesn't like it. So now what we're going to do is to say, hey, let's about not doing the lock. And we're going to use a guard that we have there. I'm not a big fan of that, but this will actually probably be the most efficient way. Press save, it compiles. Okay, so now what we have done is we have the session holder guard over there, and then we go there and then we have these things here that works, and we still have the reference of holder seed, which works. That's pretty cool. So now what I'm going to do is to say, well, I have that, that's good. I don't need has session ID because now the holder seed is my session ID in a way. So I'm going to have the holder seed like that. And that will be known. Okay. So now that will say if I had a holder session ID in the thing, and now that I have that, this one is going to cry, which is fine. And now I'm going to probably do a match on that. Okay, so this is an option. So if I don't have headers, we'll see. But if I do a match, and I'm going to match on these two guys, so the holder seed and the res session ID, okay? And then I'm going to say this one is a known business. So if I have known and I have a session ID, that is where I'm going to do this guy now. Yeah, I'm going to uncomment it because otherwise it's going to cry. Press save for the formatting, but it's going to not be happy. So this way is good. Then I'm going to say, if I have some, and I'm going to call it holder seed because I don't need, yeah, holder seed is fine. And then I'm going to do, so if we have a sum, we need to make sure it match. Okay. And then I'm putting comment right now to make sure it compiles. Okay, it doesn't like that. Yeah, it matches. So what I will do is I do it like this. And then I will do something like that. Okay, now compiles, passes. I go to my cargo watch. It doesn't work. And this is because I have this log. Sorry, I shouldn't have done that. And then that's that. Again, if you have questions, feel free to drop in here. We're a pretty small group, so that's good. We can ask questions. So now what we have is these things here, which is the stuff, and it works pretty nicely. So we do the command, we're back working. Now, what we are here, we want to make sure that that matches. So it's two string, yeah, more or less. So we're going to say if holder is different than session ID, we're going to error MCP server did not send matching session ID. Yeah, this is what we want. Cool. And then we are going to do else right now. Just this is what I do. So really in these videos here is when I do this live coding is the way I code myself. Yeah, so I'm explaining what I'm doing, what I would go through my head, but it's my way of coding. And so here, before I do anything, I will do a println. So I have a couple of things here. I have the Rust 10x AI packs that has some snippets. It's mostly snippets. And so 1p, which is my debug print. And I'm going to say all good and matching. And then we're going to print it so like this. We can see it actually. You will see that is a UUID v4. And boom, that's it. Session ID. This is a UUID. It's a v4 here. We can see that it's a 4. It's not a 7. And then all good and matching. So obviously we don't need that. So I'm going to do that. And then in this space here, what we're going to say, hey, we are going to say, there we are going to say continue, yes? So abort. And the abort is continue. We do not return an exception here because we don't want to break the flow. Yeah, so here we just do an abort. And that will work. But here's everything is working and stuff. So I'm pretty happy now because I have, so I'm going to say send request. And that I'm going to say, this one is going to say check set and check MCP session ID. Okay. So it's a weird thing because in some of the servers they are saying in the spec that the server may send that. So if you go to the spec of this guy, of the streamable, and you search for that, MCP business, they have a may there. I don't know why they have a may, because I don't understand how it could work without an MCP session ID. But they have a may. So right now our client kind of requires it. Does it? No, it does not actually. Because if it doesn't have it, it doesn't set it. And if it's not known, everybody's happy. So I guess we're pretty good. So now we'll go there and session holder. This is very good. So git commit, amend. I'm going to amend it because I did validate session holder. Okay. So git amend, git log. I make sure that I have git log because when I do a git amend, it's an alias, and I want to make sure that I don't collapse things that shouldn't be collapsed. And so now I'm okay to collapse it, so I get a git amend. Okay, boom. We have done this feature, which I'm pretty happy about. Second feature that we want to do now is handle the case as not content type. Okay, so this one is another one. So we have a small group here, but then stuff. So feel free here, if you have any question or stuff, feel free to ask here. It's always welcome. So the thing here that what we're going to do now is in the transport protocol of the MCP. So again, we have this MCP one over there, and this is this one client. So we are doing a client transport MCP. This guy, the connect that send a first request, and this one that say, hey, give me all the tools. And then we get the tools and then we print them. The nice things about this whole crate is that when that works, everything else works pretty nicely. Yeah, so that is cool. So now what we're going to do is go back to this one. And the second feature that I want to do is this one. So need to handle cases where no content type. So what's happening is that server that we have the content type he returns is, we can show it there. So we're going to do a debug print. So I do the debug print like that. And I'm going to do debug, and I'm going to do res headers. Okay. So that will print the res headers that we get for everybody. And I'm going to make some padding over there, such as we see it nicely. Okay. So for each request that we're sending, we're getting these headers. Yeah. So this guy, and we see that there's obviously the matching session ID. So now we're working very nicely. It's relatively optimized. We don't ask if we don't need, and we just do a lock once, which we have to, and then that's it. So it's pretty good. It's interesting. Yeah, I'm going to say here, I'm sorry, there will be an argument to say, hey, your stuff is cute, but you are keeping the hold. I'm still not happy with that. I will, because I'm keeping this hold, this guard across, and it's fine to do some little work, but that is not a little work. That is actually sending to the server. So I'm keeping this hold for quite a long time. Now, the beauty about the way that I implemented the client and thing is it could send multiple requests, to the same transport in parallel and stuff, and that would be supported. Right now, I don't think it will be the use case because all of the requests that I send are going to wait for the thing to come back because there's a one shot to come back and things. But that is the downside of the thing here to hold the holder guard like this, because now I'm going to send the thing and that is going to hold this guard. But I'm saying right now I'm ranting for nothing, but we're in a single loop anyway. So it's fine because this guard is for that loop. So forget what I was saying, sorry. But I will have thought that in my head. So that's fine, it's fine because this one is only for that loop and this loop goes one by one. So we are fine, we're completely fine. Otherwise, there will be a point of doing one guard here, drop it, and then doing the other guy there. And in this case, we will have to clone or to do an arcster or whatever. So anyway, all of that works pretty well. And now the next thing that I want to do here is we're going to see that is a response content type, and this is a text event. Now, when it's text event, we're using a thing here, which is event source, which is pretty cool, which is that crate over there, and that is the event source stream. So if you go and look at the event source stream spec, it's a way to get, you do an HTTP long live kind of request, rather to go crazy. What is that? I don't want to see ad. More MDN, new MDN. No, that's fine. I don't need my MDN. Event thing over there, and basically the way it works, this pseudo spec is not a hard spec, yeah, but this thing, oh, I don't like it. That's not. Oh, no, this is the name of the crate. It's SSC. Sorry about that. So if you go at the SSC spec kind of thing, and then here we are. That is the one. You should see somewhere. Yeah. So you have event, data, ID, and retry. And those are not JSON. They are like that. Yeah, they are like this. So there's a new line. And then I think, then they are like that. I don't. Yeah, so I don't really understand the other one, but it's this one, the event, the name of the event, the data and everything. And OpenAI, ChatGPT also follow, I think, this spec and stuff. So we could write our own parser and everything, but it wouldn't make sense. There's this guy, event source stream, that did a perfect job over there. So if you go there, you are going to find this guy, and that allows us, with doing the right imports and everything, to have next, and that will give you the next enum. Yeah, so that is very well done. Now, that works only when it's this SSC kind of content type back, because it's made to have multiple things like that. But if you have something that is not SSC, which is just a payload, a JSON payload, because that is obviously this beast here. And when we debug a little bit stuff, but this guy here, which I don't remember what it is, but the SSC is not JSON. Yes, it's text, which is fine. So that will give us the nice thing here. It did a good job. Event, that is the event source stream. And then we have event, which is a string, data, ID, and retry. Now, when I read the spec, I thought that those guys were optional. So I'm not sure why they're not optional there. I'm a little bit worried about that, but I'm going to assume it works. And for me, when I use it with OpenAI and Anthropic, I think that they are following the SSE in my GenAI crate. It works beautifully. Yeah. So that is good. Now, if I go back there, what I want is I want to handle the case where it's application JSON. And if it's application JSON, I'm going to assume that is the JSON RPC response. Okay. So what we want is we want that guy to be the SSC guy, and we want application JSON to be another handle. So we're going to do that. Now, there's a bug in this server which we are going to implement and we're going to support here. I have a little earpiece. I have a bug which is, I don't have a bug. They have a bug, I think, where when you send something, I don't remember, when they send a JSON RPC error or whatever, it doesn't go through event, it goes through, they reply it, and they reply it without the content type. The content type is empty. And so that is a pain. So what we're going to do is we're going to treat content type empty as JSON RPC if we can parse it. Otherwise, we're going to treat it as an error, and then we'll do the error. So we have to do the handle. We're going to do the thing like that. So let me do that. We're going to do that. Give me a sec here. So what we're going to do is to say, we do the header. So we're going to do something like this. We're going to do, so for me, I like the readability to have something like this. Let res content type. So rec and res for me, when it's variable, they are the request and response. Content type. And then that. And that will be an option. No. That would be an option of header. And I can actually do something like this, which is going to be a map, the value, and then v as str. Oh, sorry, what the to str. Okay, that's fine. So now we have an option of result of a to str, which I'm not happy about. So we're going to do and then, oh yeah, I had it before, sorry. And then 2str, okay. Okay, so if you cannot do 2str or whatever, it's going to be none, and I'm going to treat it as none. It's completely fine. I don't need to be, crazy stuff. So that is what I'm going to do. So now I have this guy, and I'm going to have two routes. One is, so I'm going to do a match right now. I'm sorry here for the flicker. Why does it flicker? Request, we can turn this one down. And we're going to have a match, and we're going to do a match on this res content. And we're not going to fill everything. What we're going to do is res content, and then we're going to say if this is a server-side event business, which is we have the string somewhere. Eventually, that should probably go to const, but I don't, anyway. So this, if that is this way, which is going to be a sum of that, okay? Then I'm going to do, I want to do that logic. So I will probably put that in a function. Yeah, except if I have continue, which I don't, which is good. So I'm going to put that into, I'm going to close this guy. I'm going to put these two guys. Yeah. And then I'm going to put, so one thing I like to do is I do like this. I have my support, is a support things private. And I'm going to do a fn, async fn, and then process SSC event. That will take something. That will return something, I'm not sure. And I'm going to put that. Again, will I do it with AI or not? I'm not really sure. So I do that. And now the res here, my res, this guy, ki, response, so I'm going to say is response, res, response. Yeah, import request response, that's good. This one I'm going to return OK. And then that's it. And I need to give this guy. Okay, so the RTX. Where's my RTX business? This one, what is the type? ComTX. Open that, and then that function compiles, so I'm okay. Okay, and then here, and it's not all done yet, because I'm going to do a process event res. I'm going to comment this guy, and then artx. And can it take this? Cool, yeah, it can take a reference. That's the way I will do it. This is because it doesn't return the same type, which is okay. Okay, so that's fine. And then I'm going to do like that. I'm going to do void for now. No, but I don't want the if-let. Oh yeah, okay, that's fine. So I don't want the if-let yet because so that works pretty nicely, yeah? Yeah, that works. We didn't break anything, so that's cool. This one consumes the result, which is good. And now what we want is to say everything is working nicely. Now what we wanted to say, okay, if now we have a sum of that guy, I'm going to copy paste, I don't want to misspell. I'm going to say that in this case, remember in the process here, we did all of this little dance to just do that send of RTX. And never forget when you use any channel things, send or receive or whatever, or at least send, to make sure that you print the error and you don't ignore it, because otherwise it's often silent and you are going to have far right. So it could be println or tracing, it doesn't really matter, but make sure you log it, make sure you see it, because otherwise you are going to waste time there. So we're going to copy that block, and then I'm going to say if this, I'm going to do that. And it's not the event, it's going to be the text. Okay, so that will be a res let text. And it's going to be equal res text. Okay, so I think it's a dot await. And the result is going to be so we are in a closure right now, so we cannot really, I mean, cool, yeah, we're not going to break a thing if a request breaks. We do not want that. So what we want is to say, do something like this, where we do a match. Might be other way of doing it, but we're going to say if there's a text, then we return text. And then if there is an error, then we're going to do an error with our tracing business, and then MCP response fail to read body. It's not really good, but it's better than nothing. And then you do that. That is super important to do that, because otherwise, again, things get silent and then we don't know. So I never use unwrap. You might find some of my crates using unwrap, perhaps in some places, but usually I don't. And if I do, you can ping me and say, hey, what happened there? Unwrap is evil. It's kind of unfortunate in Rust that a lot of the code use unwrap rather than just question mark, and you do a result boxed in over there, and then everything cascades nicely, and then you fix it later. So that is a little bit our approach of things. Now, this one, it complains because you say, hey, you're not returning a string, which is fine. So what we want is we log it, and then we return. No, sorry, we don't return. We do a continue. Yeah, because remember, we are in a loop. Yeah. So we want to do that. Okay. Now, one thing that we are going to do is to say that if that is some or none, because we have these things here, which is somehow with this kind of, at least this everything server. Sometime when I looked at it, when it sent an error, a JSON RPC error, rather to send it as SSE events, like when it's good, it send it as a no content type, but in JSON. So it's like kind of a pain. So here we're going to add a note. Servers, like the everything. Sending JSON RPC error, no content type, but JSON. So that is why we are doing the none, yeah? None, because make sure you put that. You don't have to over-comment code, it's silly, but that is important because it's counterintuitive, yeah? So when it's counterintuitive, make sure you do it. And also it's good to have code comment anyway, but don't, and then if it's other, okay, so if it's not none, but not these two guys, we want to say, we're going to do the same thing over there. And here we're going to do a continue to make sure that if there was something below, we were not going to do, but there's nothing below anyway, but just in case. And then we're going to say other, and then the same thing. We're going to say error, MCP server responded with content non-supported. And here we're going to do that. Can I do that like this? Yeah, I can do that. And I say other. So that should be the other guy. There's no error here. So can I do that like that? No. Okay. Why? Option of string. Ah. But I have the none here. Oh, no. Okay. Fair enough. That's cool. My mistake. Love it. Love Rust. Okay. Night works. Okay. Because I'd say none, but yeah, other, the type is always it's always an option. So now I know that I have some of something else. And so I have that. So that is pretty cool. Now, if the text that I get is not JSON, the layer that's parsing that in my client is going to say, hey, it's not JSON. So it's still going to complain, which is fine. So I don't need to validate that it's JSON over there. So now the nice things about that, I should have everything that works nicely. And that is pretty nice. So this session here, we were a small group, but we did quite a bit. There's two nice things here. I'm very happy with things. And so now, I'm going to do that like that. When SSE, we treat it as such. And then when application JSON or no content type, treat it as the JSON RPC response. Okay, that's it. So there's some compile issues here. I got overexcited over there. Oh no. This one is, I hate when I do these ones. Did I break something when I did that? Oh, well, I'm going to have far right here. So I forgot something. Oh, got lucky on this one. Okay. Those guys can be the thing I'm going to add. Those guys can be a pain to figure out. Okay. Now press save, and then that's it. That is pretty cool. So we are, and this one I don't like it here because it says that is a disconnect, but in fact is not an error, because in the case of, so we're going to do, now I do Command F and I do RX, error. This is not an error. I'm going to say info, and I'm going to say drop not needed. Okay, so this is just an info. It's not an error because some transport doesn't have this error things, and so it get dropped. Is okay, and that's completely fine. So this is fine. That would get started and stuff. Eventually, I might have. I don't want to do it here, except if you guys ask me. But here's the thing. Well, actually, I'm going to show you what I could have done. This is a cool pattern. It's a pattern that I use in my MCP, in my model pattern for the web server. So first, I'm going to commit this one. So again, my best practices, I go there. I make sure that I don't have any debug print. This is my little two guys here. And then I'm going to say git log muscle memory or whatever transport. So now I'm going to do git c. It's kind of minor HTTP transport. And then actually this is not minor. This is, I would say, is an enhancement. Even it's a bug fix, I could argue. And then I'm missing feature. And then it's handle application JSON content type. And it's a known, but that's fine. So boom, I have that. And so I have these two kind of, this is a way I like to have it. I'm not too dogmatic about it, but I have these markers, my dot is minor, this is enhancement, plus is something new, and minus is a fix. Then I put kind of the topic, and then dash, and then the rest. But again, I'm not being too dogmatic about it. This is the way I like to do things. And then when I do change logs on my big crates, it allows me to see what I want to sell the user that I've done. So that is a little bit what I have. So I do that. I will go back there. I'm super happy. It works beautifully. I don't have any more trace because by design, in this guy, I just do the warning here. So I don't do the other guys. Okay. And well, I'm going to remove that because this is actually confusing. It's my little silly stuff, yes. It's to avoid, sometimes I'm so lazy that I like to hear command C, command V, and then I keep both. Because like this, I can just command C, command V, but that add more confusion than value. So I'm not going to do that often. So git C, this is something else. So I'm going to say cut clean, doesn't matter. And then that's pretty cool. So now what we have done here, so I'm going to check that all of these guys works. So one thing I wanted to do today, but I don't think I'm going to have the time. I wanted, and we have done already, I think like 6-7 hours. I'm going to keep those guys for a little while. If you want to go to the YouTube here, channel, what is here over there? Okay, so if you go to Jeremy Sean here, you get my videos here, the one that are edited. So that is a scripted one. Okay, so you have a lot of guys over there, and then you have the lives. So usually the lives, they go through my members. Here I have the membership stuff, but these guys here, I'm going to keep them public for a while streaming 48 hours, but even a little bit longer, such as you guys can go see. So it's a pretty nice series here. And again, I wouldn't have had time to script it because I have too many things going, but I wanted to share it anyway and not share it only for the members, but to everybody. So that is kind of the compromise I found out. But obviously, feel free to join, and then you can access to the whole database if you are on live stream. And so And if you are an early member, you can access it for a little longer than public. But I'm going to keep them quite a bit because we did a lot and it's a lot. So I'm going to keep them more than 48 hours. They might stay there for the end of the week, assuming I'm not losing too many subscribers. Sometimes people don't like to see the members only stuff. So if you have any question, feel free to ask. One thing I'm going to say is git push origin. I have a lot of aliases everywhere. So like this, I can go walk faster. So where I push it, I shouldn't have pushed it. But in fact, what I will do is I have my cargo wash example. And I do a client C01 simple to make sure I didn't break this guy. And right now, because I'm early, why do I have a 1? Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, cool. The reason why we see the 1, I'm going to explain you, is the C01 is not me. It's not my code. I mean, is showing there is because it's stdio error. In MCP, often when you use MCP on command line, stdio protocol, transport, yeah, many servers will send some debug, some tracing or some messages in the IO error kind of things. So that is what they are doing here. Yeah, they are just sending information, but because std out is used as the channel to communicate over HTTP JSON RPC, you cannot send a string there because it will break everybody. So when they do this stuff, they just send it in error, which is fine. It's a common thing sometimes. Yeah. So that's why we see that. And then in my case, I just put the warning of the error because I don't know if it's not or whatever. So that's why we see that. So everything is working beautifully. So this string comes from the everything server, Node.js, the reference implementation of this MCP server. Now I go back on this guy. I'm going to do the C2, but this one, the way it's built, usually when one works, everybody works. So the call tools, then we're going to see 2 call tools. This is what we will send back to the AI. Now I'm going to test that. And then C3, assuming that I have the HTTP server running, which I have it there, then it will initialize a new one, and then it will turn it. Yeah. Or I can do cargo run -- example on these guys, and this will work as well. So now everything is good, so I can push it. Now, typically when I start a crate like this one, I use the example as my test as well as my validation of the ergonomics of my APIs. Yeah. And I want to be happy. And today I'm happy. I'm happy because, in fact, if you look at the readability and the ergonomic of that is the same as a Node.js or things. Very simple. Yeah, you have a client. I don't bug you to have 2 strings everywhere. You just pass your reference. That could be static or could be dynamic. And then you pass your thing. You do a connect. Just pass the config. That will get into the transport automatically, such as you don't have to do into or whatever. And then the list here, you can even take a params and create the default. And that will get into a request, or you can create your request. Now, there's a very cool details that we haven't talked about. I just want to say it because it's awesome. Well, obviously, I'm a little bit biased on this guy. But we're going to run this C01 simple. And this is why I love the cargo watch, because you're going to see. So I do the cargo watch like that. And we're going to see. Actually, I can even do where I could even do a rec into MCP request. Beautiful. So now I take a params that I can add things, take the default, because list tools here, you can take the default or put your cursor business, and then into MCP request. So, and every params implement into MCP request. So now I have the MCP request of, which is a generic of, which has a generic of list tool params. Yeah, this is pretty cool. But that works. I mean, here I didn't, sorry, up that. And because this and request take into MCP request, and because a request implement into an MCP request of itself, then everybody's happy. Yeah, so this is the thing. And this is why I have these two guys here to make sure you can pass both. So that's pretty cool. Now, the other cool thing is, remember in the spec of JSON RPC, we have the thing which is this ID, RPC, rec, ID, and all these kind of things. Yeah, that one needs to be unique. When you do JSON RPC, like for example, when we do JSON RPC sometime for our web client, we don't really care. By the spec, could be a string, could be null, could be one. It has to be defined, but could be anything except for notification. But in the concept of MCP, you have to define it and it has to be unique. Otherwise, everybody is going to, get confused. So the best way to do a unique one is to use UUID, obviously. UUID v4 or v7. I like the v7 because there's a time nature on it. And so this way I can have that for free in a way. It's not nanosecond, but it's millisecond is good enough. Now, one way I like it personally, and I'm not saying the default serialization of UUID is bad, but I like the base 58 serialization because there's no dash, only alphanumerical and stuff. There's a pro and cons because when you serialize it as a UUID standard string, then everybody knows it's a UUID. I don't know if it's useful or not, but sometimes it might be useful because people might want to store it as 128 bits. But in my case, by default on this one, until a big community asks me to do the other one, is you can create the request you want by hand if you want with your ID. But by default, look at this. One print, debug print, and I'm going to do request ID. So by default, I'm creating you a request RPC ID, and I'm using actually my RPC router behind, not the router. And that is a base 58 serialization of a UUID v7. And it comes by default for all of the tools. So every time I make a request, so for example, if I go there and all of these guys here that you see, so here cool param, you do new, and then there's nice methods for that function. And so you can build your stuff without having the builder stuff, and then you can send your params. And so the cool thing about that is that when you do the into MCP request, it will create the unique JSON RPC, such as you don't even have to worry about it. So the API is quite ergonomic. I'm pretty happy with that. So typically I do that when I'm happy. This one I don't want. I go to git restore, dot, go back, and then I have that. Now the next step that we're not going to have time today, but the next thing that I wanted to do at some point is, and I don't know if I'm going to do live, I think this subject here, I beat the horse down, so I would show how to do that. But I want to do so sometimes I do unit test or integration test. I start with one or the other. On this one, I will probably start with integration test. And I will have probably some test C, because I'm going to have client and server. So C will be client. So like this, I will have the C and SSSSS. So like this, that's the way I like to organize it on the stuff. It doesn't matter. And then I will test, so our server will be the echo, for example. Okay, but I don't know if I'm going to organize it like that. But so I might actually organize it like, I will do stdio, might do something like that. Yeah, and echo, and then stdio stuff and thing, and then I have HTTP, such as, I have the big agent like that. And then I will have few tests. And then by default, what I'm going to use is, and sometimes I have a test support here, where I have my mode .rs, and I have things that I can reuse for everybody. And then I will have those guys. So the stdio is pretty simple, but they will assume, I'm not going to mock a server. They are going to assume the everything, which I think is a good one to assume. Because it support both, and the whole planet is testing their stuff with everything anyway. So it's a good base to have. So that is the thing I will do probably offline. I'm not sure I'm going to do that online, but that's it. So if you have any question, feel free to ask any question. Oh, sorry, I was not, my mistake again. I think you probably have seen it, but I will have created. Yeah, you saw it. No, you didn't saw it. The thing I was saying, sorry about that. I will do a test like that, and I will do the integration test. So I will do a test _c client std io underscore or dash. I will do the dash probably. Will I do the dash or not? Yeah, I will do the dash. And then I will do echo, for example. Okay. And then I will have some tests over there of echo, or I might not have per call, I will say tools. Okay, that is the way I will do it, tools. And then I will test few tools over there, and then I will have one for prompt, then stuff, and then few prompt and few things. And that is what I need to create, such as I can just do a cargo test and see a sanity check. And with a very small amount of test, I can cover quite a bit, because again, the way the whole thing works is when one works, and I'm not saying I shouldn't test everything, but once one works, the other one works as well. Yeah, because that's the way it works. So hopefully that was helpful. If anybody you have questions, feel free to join the Discord. I have a Discord that you can find. You can find it. So I have two sites for you. I don't have the Discord here, but you can go to my AI pack. So that is the thing I'm building. And actually, Agentic will go to AI pack later, because AI pack will allow you to, today it allows you to build custom agents, and then it will allow you to build custom MCP and call MCP server and so on. But you have a Discord over there, which will go to my Discord server channel, and you have everything else about Rust as well. And then I have another one, which is rust10x.com. And no, I don't even have. No, I'm pretty bad about the Discord. So the best way is to go through the AI pack. Sorry, I need to put the Discord somewhere else. And then you can fall into my Discord. Okay, hopefully that was a useful session for some. And we did quite a bit. And until next one, happy coding. Yep. Happy coding.